Well, I would tell you that I'm a former point guard, a college point guard at Morehead State University, and I spoke to you about me playing in Racer Arena many times during that. But that leadership of being a point guard, the definition of point guard is to make everybody else better. I mean, that is the qualification of a point guard. When you make everybody else better, then you make yourself better. Um, I think I have a unique personality to not be mean or to be mad or cruel, but when you have to be stern and be able to gain respect. So my leadership ability is not one of strong arming or putting my foot on somebody's neck. It's about trying to work across party aisles, trying to bring people together and compromise, especially in today's political divide, which I think people are getting sick of, to be very honest, that if you got a letter out from your name that's different from mine, I'm not supposed to like you, or not supposed to be able to debate, not supposed to be able to get along.
I'm Todd Faulkner, and this is Leadership Magnified. Welcome. You just heard from Rocky Adkins. He's the latest Democrat to throw his hat in the ring to serve as Kentucky's next governor. He's the former longtime senior advisor to current Governor Andy Beshear, but stepped down to run for office. Before that, he served for decades in the Kentucky House of Representatives. We talked politics, family, and leadership. We spoke the Friday before the Fancy Farm picnic. Here's my conversation. Enjoy. Mr. Rocky Adkins, thank you for being on Leadership Paducah.
Well, it's good to be in Paducah, and it's good to be here for the weekend of Fancy Farm. It's going to be a busy weekend, but it's going to be a great weekend.
So before we dive into leadership styles, let's first talk about why you're here. You're running on the Democratic ticket for governor. Why you? Why now?
Well, I announced about 10 days ago that I was going to be a candidate for governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And, you know, I've been in the public arena for a good part of my life. I love the people of Kentucky, first of all, but I think that, I'm battle tested. I've been in the arena for a good bit, and I think the leadership and knowledge that I bring from that really puts me in a unique position that if the people of Kentucky do elect me, I don't need a class. I don't need any training. I'll be ready to hit the ground running on day one. But I served 33 years in the Kentucky House, and practically every leadership position that you could serve in. I was a budget chair. I was the majority leader for almost 14 years, and then the minority leader for 3. And then coming out of the legislative branch, where I really developed close relationships and friendships across the aisle. And I pride myself that I was able to do that, work both with Republicans and Democrats while I was majority leader, and still have those friendships and trusts that I built there during my time in the General Assembly. And then I go to the executive branch, and I've been the governor's senior advisor for the last 6.5 years. And having that blend of the legislative branch and having the blend of the executive branch, and then from the private sector of my life, understanding what people do every day to meet payroll, to be able to have a check to put food on the table, a roof over their head. I think I know Kentucky. I'm a Kentuckian, and I believe I know all 120 counties that I've been in many times. And as I said, I think I'm battle tested, and if I'm elected, I'll be ready to go on the job at day one.
And given all of your experience, how would you describe your leadership style, how you communicate with everyone from the governor when you were a senior advisor to your staffers?
Well, I would tell you that I'm a former point guard, a college point guard at Morehead State University, and I spoke to you about me playing in Racer Arena many times during that. But that leadership of being a point guard, the definition of point guard is to make everybody else better. I mean, that is the qualification of a point guard. When you make everybody else better, then you make yourself better. I think I have a unique personality to not be mean or to be mad or cruel, but when you have to be stern and be able to gain respect. So my leadership ability is not one of strong arming or putting my foot on somebody's neck. It's about trying to work across party aisles, trying to bring people together and compromise, especially in today's political divide, which I think people are getting sick of, to be very honest, that if you got a letter out from your name that's different from mine, I'm not supposed to like you, or not supposed to be able to debate, not supposed to be able to get along. When I was a majority leader, I fed the members in my office before every session. And I would go in the office, and there was as many Republicans in my office as there was Democrats, and they were actually talking. They were laughing, and they actually liked each other. And then we'd go on the House floor, and we'd have a fierce debate. and we'd have differences of opinion. We'd hold our principles, what we thought was the right approach, and then when the session was over, we'd leave it all on the floor, and we'd go out that night and have dinner. And we'd try to figure out, can we get to the middle? Can we bring this common ground, common sense to the middle and reach compromise? Everybody wants to talk about the democracy of this country. I think democracy was built in this country on debate, on being able to disagree without being disagreeable. So my leadership is one that tries to bring people together. It's one that tries to bring people along, but it's not a tough elbow in your face, foot on your neck type of thing. It's about trying that basically people know who Rocky is. They know when he is in a certain position, he may tell you no, but they know that he means that. So I think that it's the definition of point guard is the best definition I can give you on my leadership ability. It's about, giving it up, making everybody else better. And when you do that, you bring people together, you reach compromise, you're able to move forward.
Yeah, agree to disagree, but be agreeable. It's okay.
That's right.
I tell people, we were talking, I'm from Ohio, but I have a family in Ohio. We are vehemently on opposite ends of the political spectrum. But if I called them at 2 a.m. in the morning and said, I need you here, I need you here now, they'd get in the truck and drive down.
Well, and that's right. And that's where we need to get back to. We need to get back to understanding that we can have debate, we can disagree without, hating each other or being disagreeable to each other, that there is really a common ground that I think everybody really is focused on and cares about. People get up every morning. They're not worried about their political party or a network news, what they're going to watch. Let me tell you, they're worried about whether they have a job and they put food on the table and a roof over their head. They're worried about if they got good roads and bridges to drive their family on that's safe. They worry about if they have a good hospital to take their family to or themselves if they get sick. They worry about if they have a good school to take their kids to, and they worry about whether they live in a safe community. And I think when you talk about those issues with people, instead of those issues that just divide everybody, and you talk about the core table issues that people care about every day, struggling to make a house payment, struggling to make a car payment, struggling to put food on the table, I think that's the conversation without question people care about. And that's the conversation I want to have with people across Kentucky, the real issues they care about.
What, you mentioned your time in the House, fairly lengthy stretch there. That and in your role as senior advisor, what are some missteps or red flags you see younger leaders make that you've learned over time where you would pull them aside and say, hey, I don't know if I did that.
Here's what I would say for younger leaders, because I was elected on my 26th birthday. I'd only been to Frankfort one time in my life. I'm probably the person nobody ever thought would be in the political arena. But here's what I would tell you. When I went to Frankfort, I wanted to surround myself with people that had been there, people that knew the process. So everything I've accomplished in life, it's been the team I've surrounded around me that's helped make me successful in whatever it is. And I think the other thing that's really important, and I still take this, is to be coachable. Be coachable. Be willing to take constructive criticism to make yourself better. So I would tell young leaders or whoever they are, if they're just getting in the arena of being a business leader or political arena or whatever it may be, public service of some time, is to be willing to be coachable, be willing to listen, be willing to learn. I've not been able to stay in Frankfurt the time I've stayed there by thinking that I know everything and I'm right on every issue. I've been willing to listen. I've been willing to take direction and counsel, as I still do today. So that would be my direction and my advice. Listen to other people you have respect for. Be coachable. Don't take that as an offense. Take constructive criticism and make yourself better. So if there's one word that I can say, be coachable. Be coachable.
Who has been, you mentioned you were 26 when you first, entered the House. Who over time would you consider a mentor, or it might be a couple people, but somebody that really had you in a frame of mind of teaching you and being coachable?
Well, in the legislature, when I first went to the legislature, there were several people there from my region of Kentucky and East Kentucky that I placed confidence in. Ron Cyrus, be very honest with you, Billy Ray Cyrus's dad. He was in the House when I was there, and he was a neighbor to me of the district that I represented. Gene Klein, another regional legislator that had been there for a while when I went, that I knew had my best interest. I knew they had my best interest. They'd watched me kind of grow up. They'd watched me play basketball. They knew my dad. So, those were kind of what I would say the veteran members that I knew kind of had similar interest to me, but I knew would reach out and kind of get me by the arm saying, no, wait, you're getting out there. Or they'd say, that's right. You're in the right direction. So in the political arena, it was those veteran lawmakers that I listened to. But, the other people I listened to was those 42,000 people that I represented, and being ready and willing to listen. But let me tell you the thing that I've always done. And I told my constituents, and I'd still tell them that today, if the only time you ever see me is when I'm asking you to vote for me, you probably shouldn't be for me. I was a person when I served in the legislature that went to every ball game, went to every meeting, and I got a good feedback on where the public was, and they got to know me. They felt comfortable with talking to me about whatever their issue may be. And I kid now, after I've been in it as long as I've been, that there's 4.4 million people in Kentucky, and 2.2 million of them have my cell number. But you got to be approachable, and you have to be, in my opinion, to be a good public servant. You got to be accessible, and that's something that I've tried to do. In my athletic career, my coaches I had are people that I leaned on and still do. My high school coach, and of course my dad was a longtime coach and a longtime public educator, over 50 years. So when you put that core of that foundation around me, my parents, my high school coach, my college coach, when you put that core around me of people that had my back, that I knew was not trying to lead me in a direction that was not good for me. And that was so important to me. And it still is today. It still is today. You have people that you have trust in. You have people that you really know that if they're coaching you or they're complimenting you, they're doing it for the right reasons.
I end every podcast episode the same way. 3 questions. You can answer with 1 word or longer if you like. What brings you joy?
Being at home with my family when I can, and being able, that's where I relax. I have a busy schedule. So I would tell you being at home with my family, but also being able to see, feel, and touch what we accomplish in public service. I get behind the microphone. If I can look out, see a new school or a new library or a new road or a new bridge, so what brings me joy is beyond my family, is to be able to get behind a microphone and be able to look at something that we've accomplished and tell the hardworking people with their hard-earned tax dollars, you can see, feel, and touch what we're doing with your tax dollars. So that brings me joy.
What brings a tear to your eye?
To see people suffer, to see people that need help. I think public service is really about getting up every day and trying to find a way to help somebody instead of hurt them. I really, coming and eat from Eastern Kentucky and watching the downturn of the coal economy and thousands of people losing their job in coal, railroad, and steel, and the resilience of those people make me smile. But to see people who are just suffering, people just trying their best to get by, and to see that agony, that's hurtful to me, and it brings a tear.
And last question, what gives you hope?
Well, I think we live in a Commonwealth of Kentucky right now that's seeing the greatest economic development projects and announcements in the history of Kentucky. As I said here today, over the last 6.5 years being with the governor, we sit here today at $70 billion of private sector investment here in Kentucky. 70,000 new jobs at the highest wages in the history of Kentucky over the last 6.5 years. 1,300 new locations and expansions of industry over the last 6.5 years. The tourism industry's broken every record the last 4 years. Last year, we had 81.1 million people come to Kentucky to visit. Things we take for granted every day. They're coming here to see Paducah and what you have to offer. They love the river. They love the attractions all across Kentucky. So we've broken every record the last 4 years. So Kentucky has a lot of momentum going right now, and we need to keep that momentum going. And here's what would bring me more joy than anything else, is that across Kentucky, regardless of where you live or whatever region you live, that the only time you would leave that region is because you want to, not because you have to. And that's the reason I still do what I do today.
All right, Rocky Adkins, thanks for being on Leadership Magnified.
I enjoyed it. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
That's this week's show. If you like what you heard, post a link to the podcast on your social media pages. Video and sound by Mason Watkins, editing by Brian Clapp. Until next week, stay safe, friends.